Whenever you listen to social media talking points, men are the main ones complaining about why marriage doesn't benefit them, right? They're the main ones complaining like, what's the point? Why get married? All she's gonna do is take half. It's a constant fear that they have. And then they blame women for it. They blame women for putting this expectation of marriage on them and forcing them to marry them. Do men realize that patriarchy and how it's presented is the one that created this dynamic? And what exactly do they want from the women?
In our history as human beings, our entire religions and laws that were passed to force women to do things. What religion have women started to force men to do anything? Like, what are women trying to force men to do exactly? I need for a man to answer that for me. Women are trying to force men to do what? Because often, even when we're talking about things like marriage, you hear men say, oh, she pressured me into marriage. No, she didn't. What she said was, I want to be married. Now, if you don't want to, that is cool and that is okay for you, but I want to be married. So what women are asking for is their own sense of autonomy and agency to be respected, for them to decide what they want for their own lives. And if he's not ready, it's cool. She's like, I'm out then because I am ready. You don't have to be ready. So often when women say that I am ready and I know what I want for my life, that's when he's going to say, she pressured me. No, she didn't. You had a choice to let her go and you chose not to let her go. So no, you were not pressured, because saying you were pressured is a victim mentality. You made your decision to propose. You made a decision and you thought she was worth it, right? Then now you're saying she didn't pressure you to do anything, sir. You decided to do it because you decided you don't want her to be with anybody else, because you decided you don't want to lose her. And then you're saying you were pressured to do it. You were not pressured to do anything. You could have let her go, because there would be another man out there that didn't feel pressured to have her in his life. There will be. You understand what I'm saying? If you think about all the Abrahamic religions, read those books. And I'm saying this like respectfully as a Christian. Which part of those books are women trying to force men to do anything? Because which ones? I just don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what they're talking about.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us here on the Couples Development Podcast. I am your co-host, Coach Clark, and I am here with my wife,
Coach Mel, and we are a husband and wife team of relationship coaches. So what do you want to talk about today, husband?
All right. So last week, I think we had a really good episode. We were talking about, it was very, I think, men's focus, about how society doesn't really, they have all these expectations from men in terms of, be in touch with their feelings and everything, and how men don't necessarily feel heard, but at the same time, they also get scrutinized for doing so. Last week we spoke about the men a little bit, and this week I'd like to go back to the women, and specifically about marriages, right? This actually, I think both men and women will be interested in this one. So the topic today I'd like to discuss would be why women are the main ones to file for divorce. So why are women filing for divorce, right? And so just to start, I guess I'll start with men's complaints, right? And so with men, it's it seems like, from my perspective, it just seems like it's a dead end for them. It's unfair for them. They do this thing, they end up unhappy or whatever it is, and the women end up just leaving, right? And then they're, in the black community, men are constantly concerned about women taking half, or women, running off with, half of the assets or whatever it is, and child support and all this other stuff, right? And so men are typically the ones who are complaining about that, and they often feel like they're left holding, the short end of the stick, per se, right? And so oftentimes you'll hear the talking points like, back in the day, people stuck it out. It wasn't just, men feel like women divorced just for whatever. It doesn't, just any little thing, they're done. Right.
Mhm.
And it's created this really a lot of friction
Mhm.
between the two sexes in the community. And, we don't like it. We think marriage in the community is great. It's needed. It's needed for, financially, and our children need it, and so, let's kind of like maybe shed some light onto it, and we'll tackle different things. We could tackle, from, um, you know, we can start with, the limiting beliefs in marriage, because we can go into the finances, we can go into, the expectations people have in marriage, and and so on and so forth. And so, but yeah, mainly, what I want to talk about today is about how, um, yeah, women are the main ones who are filing for divorce.
Mhm.
Um, Men don't necessarily. It doesn't. I don't know if men are interested in knowing why, versus more so of why are women allowed to, and, um, why is it so easy for them to get out of a marriage,
Mhm.
and and what can be done to stop it, but not
Mhm.
necessarily knowing the why behind why they're leaving, per se, right?
Mhm.
And so, yeah, so I kind of wanted to kind of like dive into that a little bit. Just wanted to share it. What were your thoughts on that?
If men aren't interested in knowing the why behind why it's mostly women that file for divorce, then there isn't really a conversation to be had, because it's understanding the why behind women file for divorce that's going to change the results of the outcomes of marriages. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take empathy, compassion, and a desire to understand. So if those things don't exist, there's no conversation to be had.
Got it. Okay, well, you being a married woman, not a divorced one, thankfully. Um, what are you what are you hearing? Well, let's start with the why. Like, where do you think it first starts? Why are women, filing for divorce, or the main ones to file for divorce?
I actually think the reason is not, I think it's okay. Well, I think it's a little bit more nuanced. I think the reason is that I personally don't believe that boys and girls should be raised differently. And that's something that whenever I say it, a lot of people, especially men, get very angry about. They disagree with me very wholeheartedly when I say boys and girls shouldn't be raised differently. I think that what it takes to raise decent human beings that are decent in society has nothing to do with your gender, has nothing to do with your sex. So I can't rationalize in my mind why boys and girls should be raised differently. I just personally can't, because decency is decency, period. So
Well,
I just don't understand it. Um, but um, but that I say that because it relates to what I'm about to say about why it's mostly women that file for divorce.
oh,
I think that when we raise boys to suppress their feelings, to
yeah.
suppress their needs, I think it blocks their ability to empathize with other people who will not suppress their needs, and with other people who will not suppress their feelings. So I think that when you take a man and a woman and you put them in a relationship together, and the woman will not suppress her feelings and will not suppress her needs, that causes a lot of friction in the relationship, because the man is comfortable in a way in suppressing his feelings and suppressing his needs. So I'll make it a little bit easier to understand. So what I call it is invisible pain. I
Hmm.
think that women suffer and struggle with a lot of invisible pain in their marriages. And I think
Well,
that because men are not raised to see things they can't touch, smell, or see, they have a hard time seeing what is actually happening with their partners in their relationships. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist. If I can't smell it, it doesn't exist. If I can't touch it, it doesn't exist. So I just like to call it invisible pain. Do you understand what I'm
well,
saying?
I do. So, I mean,
Yeah.
well, a few things there.
Yeah.
Um, so about men and women being raised the same, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you're gonna understand the pushback behind that, because,
Hmm.
um, men and women aren't the same. Uh, I mean, because they're designed differently, um, uh, and also society. Um, I should say this. I guess nature, has its norms where, it just kind of like, it's just saying, I guess what you're trying to say is like as a whole, but the way society is now, it, they're, even with all this, women's empowerment and LGBTQ and all this other stuff, like there's still roles that, men are expected to play, and there's still roles that women are expected to play, but can oftentimes feel a conflict with do I go after my career? Do I raise my kids? How do I do both, type of thing? So I'm saying that because, yeah, you're right. I do believe that, boys aren't necessarily raised to, aren't raised to think that, yeah, my feelings matter. I should be able to express them. I'm not soft or have a problem because I am being human and saying, hey, ouch, that hurt. Right. And girls are just allowed to just be, per se. And, when it comes to men, it's like men have to be this way and talk this way and act, well, especially in the Black community, right? We have to act this way, talk this way, be this way, and so on and so forth. And it's like, if we deviate from that, then we're weirdos. Right. And so, I guess I'm kind of like getting into your point, which is why you're saying they should all be raised,
Yeah.
the same. But right.
Yeah.
But it's just, so okay, so how about, I know we're maybe getting off topic here, but then how about chivalry? How about like opening doors? Because you're saying decency, right? So
Yeah.
for example, like I don't recall my mother ever teaching me that if I'm on a bus or in a public place and a woman comes by and needs a seat, or is standing, or an old lady is standing, right, that I should give her my seat. I don't recall ever being taught that. Maybe I don't know. I don't recall being taught to open your door or hold your door open, or or any of that stuff. I do not recall being taught that. But the societal norms, I don't know if it's the ether I just downloaded from. That's what I do. So, and also women are conditioned to expect men to do these things. They're conditioned to expect men to provide certain things, right? Despite how much they make, right? And so I just wonder, how similar they're supposed to be raised, because again, and sorry if I sound under the weather, guys, I'm under the weather, whatever. So, that would make no sense. Because what will happen is, male identified Black women, which is very common because the community is the community, right? And, Black women are supposed to be a certain way, and women are supposed to be a certain way, right? And so what happened is, when a man talks too much about their emotions or is a little overly expressive, Shield himself might go to you're being sensitive, or things that is basically like the B, like calling a woman a B word, per se, for men. You know what I mean? So I just kind of wanted to, ask you about that. How does,
Yeah. I think I understand what you're saying. And I think where that comes from is that I think people often confuse separating roles, responsibilities, and tasks. You okay, Annie?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. People separate. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think where that comes from is people confuse separating roles, responsibilities, and tasks and human needs. I think people confuse the two. So when I say boys and girls should be raised the same, because even when you're saying men and women are different, I think the problem is that we try really hard and we focus a lot of our energy on the differences between men and women, when there's a lot more that makes men and women alike than there are things that make them different. So the fact that they're the same species, they're going to have a lot more things in common than differences. So the reason why I'm saying that is that we've gotten to a place in society where we focus so much on the differences that we don't recognize that if we focus more on the things that make us alike, that will help bridge the divide between a lot of the clashes between men and women. So anyways, but what I was saying is this, right? So confusing separating roles, responsibilities, and tasks with human needs means this. Whether or not I'm gay or straight, that has nothing to do with my human needs. if whether I'm gay or straight, I'm still going to have a need for respect. I'm still going to have a need for empathy. I'm still going to have a need for compassion. I'm still going to have a need for belonging. I'm still going to have a need for love. I'm still going to have a need for connection. I'm still going to have a need for self-actualization. I'm still going to have physiological needs for survival. That has nothing to do with my sex or my gender, right? So that's what I mean when I say boys and girls should be raised the same, because they are going to have the same human needs. Now, when we're talking about roles, tasks, responsibilities, like things like opening doors, now we're getting into roles, tasks, and responsibilities. If I have a female friend that I live with, we're the same gender, right? And we're both heterosexual women, that doesn't stop us from separating our roles and tasks and responsibilities based on our strengths. So she may be better at doing certain things. I may be better at doing certain tasks. That has nothing to do with our human needs. So when men ask, well, how come I have to open doors? It's like, that is a task. That is a role. That might be a responsibility, but that has nothing to do with human needs. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I do. I 100% do. That's very well said. So there was something else you said that I was trying to tackle the raising the same thing.
Yeah.
Obviously you're just talking about your background, like basically everyone, like, hey,
yes,
stop doing this, start now, because I'm saying, well, what about societal norms? But you're talking about the entire society seeing it this way. But then what's going to happen is that men are going to start feeling attacked, right? They're going to start feeling like, oh, we're being told to do these things. But then there's dissonance there, because you hear these songs about, how hard it is being a man, and how, we don't have anybody to talk to. We're expected to just go work and do whatever. All right, let's be open and share feelings. But at the same time, like, men don't do that. So it's like, which one do we as men want? And I guess that's like a question that men need to ask themselves. Do we want our feelings to be heard? Do we want our feelings to matter? Do we want, like, I was in a conference last weekend, and they were talking about somebody brought up what happened when Tyrese was saying, what more do you want from me? And he was having his crisis, and he became a meme. He became like a running joke to both men and women alike, right? And what that showed me, and what that showed, and the speaker was saying, if anything, what that showed a lot of men is that, you probably don't want to. You probably don't want to show emotion out here, because you're gonna get clowned for it. And there's embarrassment, and then there's public embarrassment. And public embarrassment is just a whole different level, right? And like you said, like Tyrese is in an interview saying how everywhere he goes, that's what, he's not known for his music. He's not known for his acting. It's like, you're the guy. What do you want from me? That whole thing. And, as much as I can kind of like disagree with some of the things he does and says sometimes, there's a point there. And so, so like I said, it's like, it's a thing that, us men in the community should sit there and ask ourselves, like, what do we want? Like, do we want this, or do we not want this? Because, or is there a victim mentality where it's like, we want, like, cause as a Black man, I can admittedly say that there's definitely a victim mentality that we have, where it's like a badge of honor, almost like, we're discriminated against, we're this, that, the other, it's harder on us, and man is keeping us down, and blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, okay, all true. Now what should we do about it? But the what should we do about it part is the part that's never really discussed. Yeah. And so with I know I'm talking for a while, but
no, you're good.
But so with did that situation with Tyrese and everything, do men actually sit there and think to themselves, we scrutinize this brother for being vulnerable, for going through something that a lot of other men complain about child custody and losing. We're talking about women divorcing, right? Child custody, women leaving them, women divorcing, and he gave everything he had, and this, that, and the other, right? And instead of like, hey, we should really, hold this brother or hug this brother, everything else. we do like the public usually does, and we, you know, make fun of and joke and blah, blah, blah. And then there's a bunch of dudes like, well, that's why you're not vulnerable. And that's why you keep it to yourself. Because again, if it was just men doing it, it's already bad enough, but both women and men did it. So, you know.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with everything that you said. I think that everything comes with its pros and its cons, because like you were saying, you know, with Tyrese crying or any in that entire situation and how the public, you know, clowned him for it. I think what's interesting about that is that this is what I mean by everything comes with its pros and cons. When women cry in public, she is dismissed because she's expected to overreact to everything. So what I mean by that is if she's crying, there's gonna be like, oh my God, she's just, you know, women, they're just doing the thing. Oh my, like there's all types of that. She gets dismissed. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's just women being emotional, and oh my God, this is why women shouldn't lead. This is why women shouldn't be president, because they're so emotional, and she'll just get dismissed. I haven't really seen many situations where a woman cries publicly or where a bunch of men corral around her and they protect her and they take care of her. What I usually see is quite the opposite. I often see a lot of dismissal of how she's feeling. So I haven't personally seen a lot of situations where women are crying and there are men protecting her. I haven't. And when I say men, I don't mean in her personal life. She might have a husband or a father or, you know, a brother that's there for her. Absolutely. I'm saying publicly, I have not seen this like corral of men coming around women and protecting her feelings. I just personally haven't seen that. As a matter of fact, the other day I was watching a video of, I think it was Angela Rye, and she just started feeling really frustrated. There was the guy that called into the Breakfast Club when he was crying because of the hurricane, and he was asking for help.
How hard it is.
Right, how hard it is. And she started crying because you just could feel her frustration. And if you read a lot of the comments, it was people telling her like to stop it. So you understand what I'm saying? So there wasn't the crying and she's doing too much and, you know, and all of that. So what I'm saying is I have not seen this, you know, I guess dichotomy, if that's the right word, but of women crying and being vulnerable in public and then having all these men corralling around her and protecting her, and then men crying and being vulnerable in public and being torn down. I have not seen that personally. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying I have not personally seen that happen. Now, I will say, as far as what you were saying about, you know, men deciding what it is exactly, what story they actually want to live, what narrative they actually want to, you know, put their voice behind. I think that's extremely important for them as a collective.
Sorry.
Oh, bless you, honey.
Yeah. No, I didn't speak, but thank you anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Each individual man is going to have his own story, but as a collective, I do think that men should decide what do we want our collective story to be. Because I think that's going to help them with a lot of the problems that they're saying that they are having in life and in relationships in general. Because people don't respect us or fight for us when we stand on nothing or when we flip-flop back and forth. It's just very hard for people to pay attention to us when we refuse to just say, this is how I feel about this. This is where I stand on this. When you're just moving the goalposts and flip-flopping, people just ignore you and they think that you're just not about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, whatever, like moving on. And I'll give you an example of that. So often you'll hear men say, they hate the expression, happy wife, happy life. And I agree with that. But at the same time, men shouldn't talk about their feelings. Men shouldn't say what their needs are. So how are people supposed to care about your happiness while you're saying you shouldn't have to say what you need? While you shouldn't have to show the fact that you're unhappy? While you shouldn't have to show the fact that you're hurting? How do you expect that to happen? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
They just don't, those two things don't go together. It's the reason why we come down to expressions like happy wife, happy life is because men have said a lot of nonsense that just really isn't true. For example, men are simple, women are complex. So if men are simple, that means it's easy to please them. So if you take two people, you have one that's easy to please and the other one that's hard to please and that's complex, then it only makes sense to focus on the one that's complex. You can kind of balance it out because the other one is simple. Yeah. And another example of that would be when we say women are more emotional than men, it would make sense why something like happy wife, happy life makes sense, because it would just be, if you focus on, you know, getting her to a, I guess, emotionally stable level, then it balances it out. So happy wife, happy life in that sense would make sense. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's like there just isn't like a coherent narrative. I mean, collectively speaking, I don't mean on the basis of each individual man, but collectively speaking, there isn't a coherent narrative as to what the ask is. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah.
It just seems like there's always like a goalpost shift happening.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I get it. I feel like it's like an internal battle, and that's a complete other subject in terms of, if more of us are validated by any of our parental figures, especially our fathers.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that's another story. Anyway, so
Yeah, because I agree with you 100% because I think that often what's happened is it's like you were saying, it's a little bit off topic, but I just wanted to respond to what you just said because I agree with you.
Mhm.
I
It may
think
not
what's
necessarily
happened.
be off topic as well, because
Yeah.
again, we're asking about the contributing factors
Yeah.
of women divorcing, because it's not,
Yeah.
I don't like this dude anymore. Bye. There's a bunch of different
No.
ways. Super.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah, but go ahead.
Yeah. Because I think that, like you were just saying, about not getting the validation and affirmation from their parents growing up. That's one of the reasons why I don't think boys and girls should be raised differently. I don't think a little boy needs less validation and less affirmation than a little girl. That's absurd. I don't think that's true at all. I just really don't. A child is a child. Like, you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I agree with you because I think that when you take a child that didn't get validation, affirmation, that child tends to grow up in one of two ways. One, constantly craving that affirmation and constantly craving that validation in a way that even if his partner gives it to him, it's never enough. Or he's raised to being so used to being neglected in that way that he can often feel like his needs are not getting met in his relationship, but he can't even describe why because he doesn't have the language to explain why he's feeling the way that he's feeling. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because he's so used to that that level of neglect, of his feelings being neglected. So he knows he doesn't feel good, but he's like, he doesn't have the language or the words to even explain to his partner why he's feeling so badly. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's one of the primary reasons why I do not think boys and girls should be raised differently. I just do not. A child is a child. A human being is a human being.
And you're referring to, like, in the sense from in an emotional sense.
Their feelings, the validation, when, because this is the thing that people don't understand. Our feelings are there as a compass for us. That's what they're there for. They're there to guide us, to tell us, hey, this is for you, this is not for you. Move closer to this, move further away from this. So when you raise a child to not be in tune with what their body is telling them, you understand what I'm saying? The signals their body are sending them, which is what feelings and emotions are, their physical sensation. You're teaching them to ignore it. They have a hard time, guiding themselves throughout life. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because this is why often you'll find a lot of adults who are super successful and they're still extremely unhappy and they can't tell you why. And often the reason for that is that their compass has been off since childhood, so much so that they're just grasping at anything and they're thinking that, okay, maybe this will make me feel better. Maybe this will make me feel better. Maybe this will make me feel better. And it just never does. It's because their internal compass, that internal radar is off. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. And I'm going to, I just thought about this, and I'm wondering, because you would often ask me this question, kind of like, what is it about, sex and the pursuit of going back into this box that men came out of, that you're just basically willing to just risk anything, like they say, like ready to risk it all, right? And as you were talking, I just had this thought, and I was just like, ooh, is that what it is, right? And so, again, I promise you we're not off topic, because we're talking about why women leave and why women file for divorce, right? And I know one of the top reasons is financial, and then I think the one after that is what, infidelity, or
but I think people could misunderstand that, because when people are filing papers, they're just going to try and find what they think the reason is. Before finances becomes an issue, before infidelity becomes an issue, there were issues before that. So if people put on the paper finances or infidelity, that's not what led up to the divorce. That's what's being blamed for the divorce. But it's usually much deeper than that, if you understand what I'm saying.
It's a bunch of things happening, but since this happens, it's like, this is my out kind of thing.
This is the scapegoat of why why we couldn't make it work. The finances or the infidelity become the scapegoat for the problems in the relationship, is what I'm saying.
Because honestly, on either end, and men don't like to talk about this either, but let's say if the wife cheats, or the husband cheats, it's more accepted that the man, the woman stays if the guy cheats because, oh, he's a man, whatever, and then versus if she cheats, oh, you're a simp, whatever, right? And so
men stay, they just don't say it. They just don't tell people about it.
They do quite often. Yeah. And so Because then it becomes like, it's an ego hit. And it's like, I need to prove myself type of thing, whatever. So where I was going to go to that in terms of like, what are the top 2 reasons we can both agree that are scapegoated are finances and infidelity? Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna move into infidelity for a second, right?
Mhm.
And I just had to stop. So I'm I'm an only child, and I was raised by a single mother, right?
Mhm.
So it's like 2 red flags there, right?
Mhm.
Right? So it is what it is, right? It is. They definitely are. And that doesn't mean they're irredeemable, but they are. Like I know that makes me a hell of a red flag, right? So I'm a 42-year-old man,
Mhm.
and I am just now learning, right, how to properly validate myself.
Mhm.
And what's interesting to me about that is this, right? It's like as men, as I'm again, I can't talk about the white experience. If you relate, great. If you're white and you watch us, thank you, but whatever, right? So as a black man, right? Being raised and not necessarily being told that what you're doing it the right way, or
Mhm.
that validation or the affirmation of, oh, okay, or the example, oh, this is a man right here, and okay, I do this, I walk like this, okay, cool, right? And so you just walk around just completely insecure and not sure of yourself, which is one of the things that women like to complain about black men having, right? Which is rightfully so, right? But
Mhm.
so again, I'm gonna take this into the marriage, right? So
Mhm.
ask, even if a black man had a father in his life, right? Ask that man how many times he was affirmed or validated by his father. And hey, good job. You're awesome. I love you. You're great the way you are. Things like that, right?
Mhm.
And so what happens is that these boys, they physically grow,
Mhm.
but they mentally stay the same.
Mhm.
And so it's like, and then God forbid they have children. And
Mhm.
now they're expected to be fathers to these children
Mhm.
when they themselves were never sons to
Mhm.
fathers.
Mhm.
And that's a role that they long for
Mhm.
really badly, right?
Mhm.
And so now you're looking for validation in,
Mhm.
in any way, right?
Mhm.
You're looking for validation. Women, when women go out with their girls or whatever, oh, you look so cute, you look whatever, blah blah, whatever, right?
Mhm.
Old school, the old heads back in my day, we weren't really like congratulating each other like that and saying
Mhm.
how good they look. Now these new kids, hey,
Mhm.
your skin looks great. What do you use? Your hair looks great. What do you use?
Mhm.
It's awesome, right?
Mhm.
But my no. And so men are constantly looking, well, black men, I would say, we're constantly looking for that validation. And if you look at the things that we're drawn to
Mhm.
gangster flicks where you're looking at men being masculine and,
Mhm.
whatever, right? We're drawn to hip hop where men are bravado and I'm better than you. We're drawn to sports and I'm better. It's
Mhm.
like, and that win is validation,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I'm asking myself because at the end of the day, yes, is sex great? Of course it is, right? Does it feel good? Of course it does, right? But the in our community, for the
Mhm.
amount of unmarried, baby mamas that are out there,
Mhm.
right? Because, we can blame the women, it could be the men,
Mhm.
you know, whatever you want to do, chicken or the egg, whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
At the end of the day, men are the ones who propose.
Mhm.
And so this constant pursuit of women and another notch under your belt is what this constant is this constant repetitive chase for the female physical body and her attention? Is it just a constant chase for validation? Is it a constant chase for, you're the man, you did this, good job? And then they can go tell stories to their barbershop mafia cartel, whatever it is, and say, oh, I had this girl, I did this, and oh, they high five, and more validation. So it's kind of like Pac said, Tupac said, right? Revenge is like the sweetest joy next to getting pussy, right? And so again, and getting it, okay, cool, felt good. And then guys they know it's called post nut clarity, right? Where it's like, okay, it's over now, right? And so what I'm asking myself is that constant? Because I don't know if I don't know the cheating levels or whatever it is, but stereotypically, it's like the things that Black men are stereotypically known in the man's world per se is being, a mandingo and he is in bed and this, that, and the other. It's kind of like and they wear it like the badge of honor, right? Whereas other men, Indian men, they're known for their brains and doctors and electronics. White men, they run the world. What else is there? Asian men, same thing. Smarts, doctors, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Jewish men, I can't say that, right? but so on and so forth. What are we known for? And not only that, we're known for cool, and we're known for hip hop, and which is good creativity, right? And, but in regards to the impact, it's not there. And so I'm asking myself, is the thing that we have that's constantly, and I'm sorry I'm taking so long, but the thing that we have that's constantly being repeated of chasing and they can never get enough. Like you have dudes that I know dudes who say they have over 500 a body count, and I believe them, right? Let's say if it's true, and they're still pursuing. It's like, then it's like, okay, what's the thing there? Because it's not, at some point it gets like, okay, what, you know what I mean? And so is it the constant chase? Is it validation that they're chasing? And that woman that's willing to open up to you physically, and you're able to quote unquote get something from it, right? Is that what it's all about? So going back to marriage, what do men complain about in marriage? Oh, when she was my girlfriend, I get sex every day. I get head. I get this, that. I don't know. She was a freak. All of a sudden, once you start paying mortgages and sending kids to, private schools and this, that, and the other, and whatever, paying taxes, all of a sudden it's like, I'm tired, my head hurts, and not as available and as enthusiastic. And then she's kind of like, hurry up and say, she's not as enthusiastic as she. And then so now here comes I'm just going to use a stereotypical new hire at the office who's a secretary or whatever, cute waitress thing, whatever, right? And this waitress or this cute new hire, whatever it is, oh shoot, I'm sorry. This waitress or this cute new hire or whatever it is, right? Sorry, I'm saying one more time. So this waitress or cute new hire or whatever it is, she's not going to have much expectations. Like, might feed her, take her out to dinner, whatever, if that even, but she's going to give you that validation. Everything she says to me is going to be new and exciting. And, ooh, you're so smart, or you're so this, you're so that. And that man will go home that day and his wife, like, did you remember to bring home the meat? You didn't, did you eat out, or did you forget this? And it's kind of like, this time, bro. So it's like they're not getting validated by their wives, in their minds at least. And anything this random girl says is like ultimate, and they hold on to it. And then it's like that they chase. So I wonder, lastly, if that plays a heavy role in the constant, and it's not me making excuses, by the way, but I wonder if that plays a heavy role in men, being, constantly getting caught cheating. And not only that, you're saying before, there's an unfair weight put on women on constantly having to validate men.
Mhm.
And let's say the men that they're with, and the men are kind of like, oh, what's wrong with that? We have to tell women they're beautiful, whatever it is, blah, 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 blah. Right? But it's like you said, it's like it gets to a point where it can be an unhealthy amount of expectation. If you don't say this, hey, I just told you this, and I just told you how much I love. I just told you how I appreciate you and everything. But it's like it's not enough because they're chasing that thing that they didn't have, child, and they put all the pressure on their wives to fulfill these things, and it can be problem. So it's like one of the you know what I'm trying to say, but I know I said a lot.
You did say a lot. I will say the last thing you just said about putting a lot of pressure on the wife to validate them. That's a part of emotional labor. And it's very invisible. And a lot of people, it's very hard for men to see why that can physically take a toll on someone's body. It's very hard to explain that. That's why I call it invisible pain. But firstly, because you did say a lot, so I'm gonna say firstly though that what's today's date? October 23rd. So I'm October 23rd, from October 23rd, 2024 until forever, you are officially banned from using the word secretary. Moving forward, the word is receptionist or executive assistant. You are officially banned. I want to make sure I say this. Using the word secretary. Okay?
Yeah, but there's no cute administrative position. There's a cute secretary.
There you go. You say administrative assistant from now on. No more secretary.
No, administrative assistant.
Every time you say the word secretary, I imagine the show Mad Men. That's all that I can think about.
Yes.
But anyways,
which we're all getting sexually harassed. See?
Sorry about that. But okay, you said a lot. So I do agree with you. I think that there's so much to be said about sex and relationships, and that's part of the divorce rates too, I think. But I just wouldn't know where to start because you did say a lot. I do agree that men use sex for validation. Again, I think a lot of the things that men are raised to view as validation are external to themselves, and sex would be one of those things. So it's all about what I can get other people to do is what validates me versus how I feel about myself. And that's again reason number two why I don't believe that boys and girls should be raised differently. What was I going to say? Yeah. So the problem also with the narrative, the public narrative around sex for men is that they often do things that sabotage their needs being met in their relationships, but they just don't recognize that it's having that effect. So meaning when men say things like men can have sex with anybody because men can separate sex and love, but then at the same time in their relationship say that they feel like their wife no longer loves them if they're not having sex, there's a problem with that because you've already said you can separate the two. So if you can separate the two, whether or not she's having sex with you, you should still be able to feel that she loves you, right? You could still want sex, but you should still feel like she loves you because you said you can separate the two. You understand what I'm saying? Right. And then they also don't understand that if you are saying that men can separate sex and love, you are also making sex with your partner not important or not special. So for her to understand why it's important to you and why it's special to keep your bond going in your relationship, you've already said it's like breathing air to you. It's nothing. You just get it off and you move on with your day with anybody, anytime, anywhere. You've removed the specialness behind it. But you expect her to see it as something special. You want her to see it as something that you feel loved by, but also devaluing it at the same damn time. It just doesn't make any sense. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
It just doesn't make any sense. So men are the ones that devalue the value behind sex with a woman, and then they get mad at women for keeping it away from them. But you've devalued it. You said it's nothing to you. And just get it off and move on. It's nothing. It's like air. Doesn't mean like you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
So what makes it valuable in your relationship? Do you understand what I'm saying? But
I do.
Whatever.
I do. Yeah. And so so anyway, so like I said, I wonder if that's the thing, that's the reason for it. And like I said, when you combine the pressure of, hey, validate me, and then she's gonna do it, so I'll let her validate me, whether whatever. There is emotionally cheating, and men emotionally cheat too. They act like
they do, yeah.
My girl, whatever, blah 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 blah, to some other girl, right? So they do as well.
What's that term? Work wife? That's emotional cheating. That's what it is. So Yeah.
Anyway, so
That's what it is.
we're all over to yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
so there's that. But anyway, so like I said,
But let me say one thing here, honey. I think the problem is that when it comes to relationships, there's a certain level of groundedness, being grounded in reality, that it will require in order for people to be happy and satisfied in long-term relationships and for them to be successful, that a lot of men and women are just not willing to accept. It's almost like a lot of people prefer to live in the false reality in their minds of what could be versus grounding themselves in what real relationships look like in real life, in reality. And the reason I'm saying that is because the thing that you just said about I'm gonna use your word secretary, even though I can't stand it, but the guy seeing, at work and her laughing at his joke or whatever, and now he's already fantasizing about how much he wants him, and he's ready to, and he's ready to risk his entire family for it, all of it.
Everything. But that's just so something.
Yeah.
That's just how much he needs. But and we're not in touch with it either. How much we need validation. This girl who you just got hired 2 weeks ago chuckled or smiled at a joke you made or thing you said, and it's like,
Yeah. No, but I do think men. Bro. I do think men need it a lot. But I will say that phenomenon is not unique to men. Women tend to fall prey to it too.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's not unique to men at all. Because this is what I mean by the groundedness that we all need, that most people refuse to accept about what it takes to have a satisfying, long-term, successful relationship, right? When you are in a relationship with someone, there is a certain level of predictability that comes along with that for good reasons. Because you're supposed to feel stable and secure in your relationship. You're supposed to feel like you trust your relationship is a safe space for you.
That's a positive and a negative.
That is both going to be a positive and a negative, because that predictability is anti-passion, right? Because what creates passion is the unpredictable, right? It's the anticipation of what might happen. Do you understand what I'm saying? And a lot of that requires is the ability to create stories in the mind. In the mind, I'm fantasizing and creating the story about what it might be like to be with this person, to see this person, to date. It's the story that I'm creating that's creating that feel-goodness inside of my body. That's where that's coming from. Not from the other person, but from the story that I'm idealizing and creating in my mind. When you're in a relationship with someone, you have very little room to idealize and create story because you know your partner. You know where they're going to be at what time most of the time. You know what they're going to eat most of the time. You know what they're going to wear most of the time. You know what scent they're going to wear most of the time. So because of that predictability, sometimes that can create lower desire, if you understand what I'm saying. So if people want to be a long-term committed relationship, there is a radical acceptance that with predictability, there comes some losses, but there also comes a lot of pluses. But people think that at some point they'll figure out some magic formula to make it all pluses. That is literally impossible. It just doesn't work like that. So I mean,
I'm with you. So, again, the thing about so what happens is that there's a lot of other things happen in a relationship that men are unbeknownst to them, or they were told, or maybe didn't pay attention to, or whatever. And then the infidelity happens, and kind of like, oh, well, that's my out, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right. And so, so there's that. What other ways do you think in terms of why women are the ones divorcing? I'm thinking more like this is kind of back to what you were saying about how boys and girls are raised. Is it the expectations that the world has of women versus juxtaposed to the demands that men have of women, and the lack thereof, or whatever expectations the world has of men? You know what I mean? Like what other reasons are there in terms of
I think that the expectations is one. I think another big issue is that we've normalized being inauthentic during the dating phase. That's just something that society has normalized. And then we're surprised that relationships and marriages fail. If we're normalizing pretending and putting on a performance when you're dating somebody, eventually that performance is going to fade. You're not going to be able to keep that up very long. And when people start being the true themselves, it's going to break up the relationship. It's going to cause issues in the relationship. Because often when I tell people, from when you're dating, be you, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, right, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So again, this is what I'm trying to say. We have normalized not being authentic even in the dating phase. So when you take two people who are not being authentic even in the dating phase, you put them in a relationship together, they can often keep up the performance for maybe a couple years. After that, life is going to kick in and they're going to have to start showing their true selves and who they really are and how they really feel and, what doesn't matter to them. Their values are going to start to show and it's going to cause friction in that relationship. So I understand the whole thing behind pretending at the beginning because then the person won't want you. You got to do this. You got to dress this way. You got to talk this way. You got to act this way. You got to, it's just, it might be effective in the short term, but it is awful in the long term. It just doesn't work long term. And I think that that's another thing that causes the divorce rate as well.
Yeah. Well, how does that show up for women in marriages? Like, what is it that are women having this false expectation that he's going to be Don Juan DeMarco from how he courted her? He's going to continue to court her from now until the next 20, 30, 40 years or whatever. Right. Which, from my understanding, but
Yeah, I don't think it's a conscious thought for her, but I do think she probably doesn't notice how much she needs it until he stops doing it, probably. So I don't really think like it's that much of a conscious thought. I think that once it starts to go away, and usually when this is what happens, right? So like you were saying, when men talk about, when you first meet her, let's say the first year or whatever, the relationship there, you're having the sex frequency or whatever, and then it starts to go away. I think that what isn't accepted is that whether you're in a relationship or not, sex requires a dynamic, right? There has to be something for both people to do in order for them to get to the point of having sex, right? So what happens often in relationships is that people, again, that predictability, the man and the woman come home from work, they're maybe laying in bed, whatever, and then he'll probably be like, can I get some? And she's like, that's it, like, and often another thing that society has normalized is that he has the right to sex in his marriage, right? Like we were watching the thing, and what was the language that men were using? Oh, denying him access.
Denying him access.
Denying him access to. It's not a freaking garage. What do you mean by denying him access to? Like, what the hell does that even mean? Like, what are you talking about? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, these are the things, this is what I mean when I say there's just this language, just like the way that they talk sometimes. Like, do you even hear what you are saying? Because at the end of the day, when the sex stops in the relationship, there are things that happen before that that causes that to happen.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? It doesn't just stop happening. Yeah, now she has her paper. She doesn't care anymore. All right, dude. Yeah, that's what happened. Let's just roll with that. That's what happened. Like, come on.
Right. So I hear on that, but again, we're talking about the reasons why the women leave, and so is that, do women have a really high expectation of eros love, and because that's how the men caught them, right? And when that starts to become into transition into agape love, it's like, it's not as exciting, it's not as thrilling, it's not as passionate, and then they're not as into it, which can kind of lead to disinterest. Is that unrealistic? Is that an unrealistic expectation that women can have that can lead to more divorces, per se?
I don't think that it's women. I think humans, both men and women, have that unrealistic expectation of eros lasting forever in their relationship. I really do think that's part
for those
of
who
the
don't know,
problem.
like explain what eros and agape.
There's different types of love. Eros is basically like the movie version of love. It's like, they're jumping all over each other as soon as they see each other. They spend all night on the phone together, like that whole, like, it's all driven by like passion and nothing else. That's basically what eros love is. And then you were talking about, I think, agape. Agape is unconditional love. I wouldn't use the word agape because I don't think most people have the ability in their relationships to have agape love. I think that they have the
Oh,
ability to have agape for their mothers, their fathers, their siblings, even for
their children.
friendships, absolutely, their children. I think that when it's something about sex makes it very hard for people to have agape love for their partners. Because
Yeah.
agape love is unconditional love. Now, what Eros tends to transition into in a relationship is pragma love, which basically means pragmatic. It's a practical love where we've made this commitment to each other. So it's about commitments, and we're gonna do this life thing together. It's about goals and bills, and like it's very practical. So what happens in relationships is that at the beginning, for the first couple of years, it'll be that Eros love, which is all about passion and sex and and I can't wait to hear your voice
Surface
on the
level
phone
stuff.
and all of that surface
Mhm.
level stuff. And then after about 2 years, it then tends to start to transition into more pragma love, which is that practical commitment, committed, security, stable love. And often when the love transitions to that pragma love is when people start to feel like their partner has changed. And it's also when they start to feel like their partner no longer loves them or there's a problem in the relationship. Because what people don't realize is that there is no problem in the relationship. People confuse the stable love for a lack of love. If you understand what I'm saying? They confuse
Yeah.
the two.
Yeah.
Now, what can actually save relationships is agape love, because agape love is unconditional. That means that there's nothing that you can do to make me stop loving you. Now, this is a part of the problem, right? I often hear men say they hate when women say unconditional love because women are not capable of unconditional love. Because if they were capable of unconditional love, they would never leave. The problem is that what they confuse is there is unconditional love and there's unconditional staying with somebody. Those are two different things. Just because you can't live with someone doesn't mean you no longer love them unconditionally. So what I mean by that is the same way that you can love a family member, but you know damn well you can't live with them, whether it's your mama, your daddy, your brother, your cousin, your sister, your best friend, you love them unconditionally. Like the love that you feel for them internally is unconditional. Like you always love them. But damn, I can't live with you. Like you'll drive me crazy if I live with you. That's what men often confuse when they think that unconditional love equals unconditionally staying with somebody. Those are two completely different things. The same way that if you have a family member, a friend, or someone that you love that passes away, you can continue to love them. That is unconditional love, even though they're not doing anything for you. They're not meeting any of your needs, and you still inside, you can feel that love. That's what unconditional love is.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
and
I
yes,
do.
husbands
Absolutely.
and wives or partners that have been committed to each other can love each other unconditionally. That doesn't mean I'm going to let you treat me any type of way and stay with you. That's two very different things. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. That was very, 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 very well explained. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So like you said, in terms of like women can get into their relationships and their marriages expecting the disunification to last forever.
But I said, I don't think it's just men, it's just women. I think it's both men and women. So for example, the way that Eros, the way that disnification shows up for men is the expectation that she's ready to jump all over him every time she sees him. That is the male version of disnification, but they still have that same Eros, disnification. They just don't recognize that that's what it is. So they'll recognize it with women and think that, oh, she wants him to always, it's like Disney. I'm like, dude, you have a male version of that too. You just don't recognize that that's what it is. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oftentimes, so and again, staying on point, not subject, right? Whenever you listen to or read or hear, social media talking points, men are the main ones complaining about why marriage doesn't benefit them, right? They're the main ones complaining like, what's the point? Why get married? All she's gonna do is take half. I have a fear of, her taking half of, and if she takes half, then that's going to piss me off and whatever, blah, 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 blah. Right. It's a constant fear that they have. And the thing is, I don't know if and then they blame women for it. Right. They blame women for putting this expectation of marriage on them and forcing them to marry them. Right. And then complaining, and the men do it, and then just to end up divorcing him. Right. And so I guess the thing would be, because do men realize that the patriarchy and how it's
Mhm.
presented is the
Mhm.
one that created this dynamic?
Mhm.
And, what exactly do they want, from the women per se? If
I
that makes
don't, I think, yeah, no, it's something that really frustrates me because I don't know. Okay, what there are in our history, right, as human beings, there are entire religions and laws that were passed to force women to do things. What religion have women started to force men to do anything? What are women trying to force men to do exactly? I need for a man to answer that for me.
Well,
Women are trying to force men to do what?
well,
Because often, even when we're talking about things like marriage, you often hear men say, "Oh, she pressured me into marriage." No, she didn't. What she said was, "I want to be married." Now, if you don't want to, that is cool and that is okay
That's
for
what it
you.
is.
But I want to be married. So what women are asking for is their own sense of autonomy and agency to be respected, for them to decide what they want for their own lives. And if he's not ready, it's cool. She's like, I'm out then because I am ready. You don't have to be ready. So often when women say that I am ready and I know what I want for my life, that's when he's going to say, she pressured me. No, she didn't. You had a choice to let her go. And you chose not to let her go. Do you understand what I'm saying? So no, you were not pressured, because saying you were pressured is a victim mentality. You made your decision to propose. You made a decision and you thought she was worth it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then now you're saying she didn't pressure you to do anything, sir.
Well,
You decided to do it because you decided you don't want her to be with anybody else, because you decided you don't want to lose her. And then you're saying you were pressured to do it. You were not pressured to do anything.
Yeah.
You could have let her go because there would be another man out there that didn't feel pressured to have her in his life.
Yeah.
There will be.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
I
and
do.
When we think if you think about all the Abrahamic religions, read those books. And I'm saying this like respectfully as a Christian. Which part of those books are women trying to force men to do anything? Because which ones? I just don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what they're talking about. Because even when you talk about female sexuality, that men complain about, women control access to sex and women in relationships, they don't give it to you. It's men that shame women for their sexuality.
Yeah.
You hear more men complain about OnlyFans than you hear women complaining about OnlyFans. You hear more men complaining about twerking than you hear women. I mean, you hear more men complaining about twerking than you hear women complaining about twerking. So you hear more men criticizing and shaming women for their body count than you hear women shaming men for their body count. So men spend so much energy and effort and time creating religions and policies and shaming tactics to try and control women's sexuality, just to then gaslight them and say, women, men need sex and women try and keep it away from you. Dude, what are you talking about? What are they talking about? What are they talking about? It literally doesn't make any sense. It makes absolutely zero sense whatsoever. It is absurd. Even when you think about the Madonna whore complex, that a woman is either a whore or she's a Madonna, that's a male manufactured thing. That's nothing to do with women. So when you're telling women that when they are sexual, that means that they're a whore and they're no longer a Madonna or marriage material, you are creating this system. What the hell does it have to do with women at all? And even when you think about when men are like, oh, women should have a low body count and men should have a high body count, who the hell are these men supposed to be having sex with? Who the hell are these men supposed to be having sex with to get their body count up while women's body count is low? Who are they supposed to be having sex with?